Hi, folks. Steve Urban here, host of the Riderflex podcast and founder and CEO of our day job recruiting firm, Riderflex. We hope you enjoy this episode. And as a reminder, please subscribe to the podcast for updates and news. Finally, if you haven't already, check out the series of books we've published on hiring, interviewing, and overall career advice titled The Riderflex Guide, available on Amazon. And now, a quick word from our sponsor.
Most homeowners don't have the time or expertise to properly take care of their home, which causes costly issues to arise. That's where Kira Home Maintenance comes in. We're a full-service, routine maintenance company that was developed by a certified home inspector. Each quarter, we service our clients' homes following manufacturer's recommendations to properly maintain all the necessary appliances. We provide the materials and expertise to prolong the life of your property, creating a healthy and efficient environment for your family. From top to bottom, we'll maintain and service your home. To get started, we have a property inspection to determine what needs to be maintained, and a maintenance plan is created based on your preferences. From refrigerator coils to filters, vents, and drains, we do it all, and we do it well. Contact us today for your free routine maintenance inspection, and never worry about your maintenance again.
Brian Gerstner on the Riderflex podcast. Hello, Brian.
Hello, how are you?
Pleasure to be here. I'm doing fine. Not often I get to interview somebody that lives 10 minutes from me.
Right, we should do this in person.
Exactly. For the listeners, we both live in northern Colorado, and Brian's not too far from my place, is what we were just discussing before we started recruiting. Boy, northern Colorado, how long you been there? Or did you grow up in the area, or how long you been in northern Colorado?
No, I'm a native Kansan, honestly. And before I came this way, I was up in Connecticut for almost a decade.
Okay.
Decided Colorado was as close as I could get to home and still have a job.
Okay, very good.
It's been very good to me, though.
It has just exploded in northern Colorado lately, hasn't it? With the development and the construction and the homes and the businesses, it's unbelievable.
Yeah, no, it is wild, but it's still a good place. With all that growth, it's still been a good. I like it.
I agree. Yeah, I'm still okay with it. When I moved to Johnstown, we had one stoplight. In fact, it wasn't even a stoplight; it was a flashing light at the McDonald's downtown. So it's changed just a little bit. Yeah, still a good place to live. It's getting a little more crowded, but it's still.
There's just a lot of diversity around here, so that's one nice thing about where we are.
Yeah,
out of the city, but like crazy diversity. It's wild. When I go around, I see these businesses, and I'm like, "Are you serious? We have one of those here?" Like it just in the nooks and crannies, and you wouldn't realize it, but there's some pretty amazing businesses up here.
Yeah, no doubt. So you grew up in Kansas, so we went to high school?
Yeah, no, I grew up in Hays, Kansas. Hays, America.
I know exactly where it is.
Yeah. Spent a long time there, and then met my wife in college, and she got an opportunity to work for Yukon. So sight unseen, we just packed everything up and took off east of the Mississippi, and for the very first time, and it was amazing. It was really cool. It was a really great experience out there.
Was she from Kansas too?
She was Colby.
Wow. Not everybody transitions well to the Northeast coming from the middle part of the country. A lot of people they don't do well. I'm surprised. You guys did all right though, huh?
Well, what I noticed was, being from Kansas, you get around, you talk to folks, and there's a pretty long story. When I got out east, I found out you just it's bottom line first, but you get to the punchline quick, and then you tell as much story as you have time for.
That's a good way to look at it. They do move a lot faster. They talk a lot faster. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I grew to appreciate it though. Like just as far as culture, you know where you stand with folks out there. People don't mess around too much.
That's a good point. I had a guy told me he was actually from Albany, but he said, look, because he would come out to Texas and Oklahoma and see me. And he would say, look, here's the deal. He goes, the reason we always move so fast is it's always freezing to death. We're frozen all the time. I lived in Connecticut I lived just northwest of Hartford up in Avon, Simsbury.
Yeah, no, I was in Hartford, so I know exactly. I was half an hour east, Stafford Springs. Know exactly what you're talking about.
Okay.
Been many times.
We did not, well, we were there for 3 years.
Yeah.
I did okay. My wife, she was a small town. She was from Big Springs, Texas, which is out west. And I don't know if you know where that is, but Midland, Odessa, all that stuff. And so, yeah, she didn't do well, Connecticut. She's never fit in.
Well, I remember I took my dad up there. He was born and raised Kansas all of his life, and it's claustrophobic if you're not used to it. There's so
Yeah.
many trees. The
Yes.
forest is dense, like you don't need sunglasses. You just don't. Like there's always shade. So
Yeah.
it was a change though, but that's what I was looking for. I was fresh out of school. I had gone through and got a degree in fine arts, realized I wasn't super employable, and then went into communication arts. So
Ah,
right after that, being in communication arts, um, yeah, I growing up small town Western Kansas, kind of always knew I was gonna pick up and head out,
yeah.
and
Good for you.
it's just that was my opportunity.
Yeah.
I felt,
Yeah.
I felt young and dumb enough. I could compete with the world and, wasn't going to scare me. So got out there and I did all right. I found a good groove, made some good friends, started doing a lot of design work for point of purchase marketing, retail locations.
Uh-huh.
So it was
Okay.
kind of good. It was getting my feet wet, kind of getting into a lot of that. But Connecticut was good too because there's a lot going on out there. Once again, there's all kinds of businesses just in these nooks and crannies, and you wouldn't even know they're there, just like Colorado, but it's a lot smaller.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt. What did your folks do? Your mom and dad?
Yeah, well, so my mom ran a daycare for like 45 years, self-employed.
All right.
Yeah, that was pretty amazing. So I kind of grew up in a bit of a controlled chaos environment. Always someone to have a bowl of Cheerios with in the morning. And then my dad was into electronics. So he did a lot of like early on electronic work when you were actually soldering and making your own soldering boards back in the day.
How about
And
that?
then as that progressed, he went into business on his own, rental properties, real estate, started doing a couple other kind of just real picking up like he'd make something, get on eBay when it was fresh and back in the day, and he'd sell that product and then he brought some properties and just kind of wanted to be his own boss, wanted to kind of do his own thing and, you know, found his own way in that regard.
Now I know where the entrepreneurial bug came from mom and dad then, basically.
Yeah, yeah. And, fun thing with my dad being electronics, I learned, not to be too afraid of pushing a button or turning something off because he was always breaking and putting things back together.
Okay, cool. Any siblings?
I have a younger brother and a younger sister. Yeah.
Are they entrepreneurs?
No, my brother is a web developer. Get this for a metaverse game development company based upon cryptocurrency. It's a new trend these days.
Interesting.
And my sister is stay at home with her daughter, but was a regional lobbyist for the Heart Foundation out of
Oh, cool.
Kansas City.
All right. All right. Pretty good. And then just a couple more little questions around who you are as a person in their early life. Were you good, like straight A student, good kid, never in trouble, or did your dad have to come get you down at the sheriff's office in Hayes, or what? Give me some.
I was pretty good at getting away with most of it, and definitely not a straight A student. Yeah, once I got it, as I said, once I went into college though, and kind of found what I like doing, that whole little area where I could focus on inside of like the arts, just there I got straight A's. Everything else was kind of an exploration. I felt college was always a test, how many things can you juggle at once?
Right. Yeah, no doubt.
A
Right.
multitasking experiment, I suppose.
Okay, very good. And how about now? Married, kids, single, social life? What's up?
Nah, I'm married, 18 going on 19 years, and I've got a son. He's 8 years old. And his name is Max, and
Uh,
he's just freaking amazing. So
very good. Good for
my
you.
wife is too, but Max it's pretty cool watching him grow.
Yeah, and he is at a magical age. That's before puberty, which is awesome.
It all changes.
Yeah, I always say between finishing diapers and about 11. They're awesome. After the 11 or 12, 13, sometimes it can be a little rocky. What's your wife do?
She is an art teacher. She's a K
Art
through 8 teacher. Yep.
Okay.
Grew up in Loveland.
Right.
She's at Conrad Ball right now, a new school consolidated from a couple different schools.
All right.
Huh.
Yeah, cool. Appreciate you sharing that with me. Okay, cool. So you get out of school, and you continue with the artistic, creative kind of mindset in your jobs. Walk me through a little bit of your career before white label IQ, just a little bit.
So I started in the fine arts, went into graphic design. I spent 7.5 years on my bachelor's degree. So kind of one of those like, why would I want to graduate? Full-time job? Doesn't sound like fun.
Yeah, that sucks.
Yeah, I remember my very first full-time job, 40 hours during the summer. I was a graphic designer for the university. 2 weeks into it, I'm just sitting there like wondering, is this my life? I turned to my boss and was like, so let's just say like theoretically I just took off for the rest of the summer. Could I get my job back? And she was like, well, maybe. And that was good enough. Went to Europe on my own for like 2 months.
Wow,
Two
that's before you
like two
got.
thousand dollars and was like, let's see what
Whoa.
I can do. Worst case scenario, I come home early. I
Was this
just
before you got married then? Before you
Yeah, no, this was on my own. Yeah, this was before I got married.
Oh, cool. All right. All right. There must be
Um,
there's some stories in that trip, I'm guessing.
yeah, some I can't tell, but the after doing that, I graduated and actually stuck around a few years. Worked for a company called DSNWK. It was a developmental services company working with disabled people, and I was a job coach, basically helping people get their first apartment, get their first job, kind of learn a lot of those living skills and making that transition. Did that for about 2, 3 years, and then back to the story when my wife got the job opportunity. We were still dating at that time, and
Okay.
sounded like a great adventure. So we took off, and I ended up working for a company called Windsor Marketing, and we did a lot of point of purchase marketing material for retail locations. So, think like
Yeah.
grocery stores, Brooks Brothers, Circuit City back in the day, just all the different signage you see inside of real estate or
Yeah.
retail places. And that was pretty cool. Very seasonal type, situation with the types of sales and everything. But you kind of get to the point where you're either putting down roots or you're picking up and moving. And we decided after a little while we were going to get closer to home so we could be around the family, be a little bit closer. Parents were aging, my brother, sister were looking to have kids and just wanted to be a little more part of it. Being all the way on the east side, that wasn't possible. So
Yeah.
I stuck around and we were still up in Connecticut and I went and did a program and got a Bachelor's of Science in Information Technology from UMass Lowell, and really wanted to get more into like a lot of the web space because that was definitely growing. Print wasn't, wasn't growing so much back then. And yes, I'm back to the point where web wasn't really that big of a thing when I got out of college. Um, so did that, got the degree, and then as I came to Colorado, started working for a brand strategy firm and started leading most of their digital projects.
Okay.
It was a company called Huebner Marketing,
Yeah.
and technically kind of somewhat worked for them still. It's a little complicated story, but we'll get into that. But yeah, it having an art degree and then an IT degree. Um, I could kind of bridge that gap between
Nice.
design and development. And going in my development degree, start to realize that you really have to focus down to do well in the industry. Like you have to be,
Mm.
you have to develop inside of a very specific stack and excel to be doing well. And I didn't really have the attention span for that.
Okay.
I kind of was able to bridge that gap and started handling a lot of the digital projects. This is even back in the day when Facebook just was really becoming a thing, and we're like, what's the next social platform? And that was the story. Um, and progressively in working inside of a marketing agency, started working with a lot of freelancers. We started hiring different development teams and really started to see all the budgets move into the digital space. Be it, paid media ads, websites, lead conversions, all that. The money started moving. So we as an agency started moving that way too, of course.
Mhm.
And progressively just started to build um, development teams. Our, classic marketing agency experience. You go to the table and they're like, we need one of these. Like, your lucky day, we know how to do that. And then you have to pop up in Google and you're like, how to build a website. um, so you really learn a lot trial by fire,
Yeah.
particularly at that time when it was really just evolving. Felt like the Wild West. Everybody, there's a lot of opportunity. And in that, things started to mature. Clients started asking for a lot more sophisticated solutions, a lot more integrations, a lot more interactive experience, a lot more strategy into it as people started getting there. And that's really where the fun was. The idea
Yeah.
is like building that strategy, building that plan, building something unique. And we started then working with a couple agencies offshore because we kept running into the problem where when we're working with freelancers, we're getting really inconsistent delivery and experiences and didn't know what to expect.
Right.
So it was taking a tremendous amount of time from our agency to be able to manage everything going on.
Hmm.
And then as we started to bring people in house, it got to the point where we bottleneck constantly. We'd sell one, two, three projects, and then our sales team would be kind of frozen. They'd be like, I have this great idea, but I'm not going to pitch it because if we pitch it, we're never going to be able to launch it. It's not going to work. We just don't have the bandwidth to do it. And then, working with agencies, it gets kind of pricey on the US side. So we ended up going offshore
Okay.
with some teams out of Bulgaria, India, went into the Philippines, Ukraine a little bit. And what ended up happening, you can't necessarily predict it, but this particular relationship I developed with Nishant Rana. He's in India, he's up in Ahmedabad, and we just kind of were able to work really well. A lot of that often happens even with clients.
True. That's true.
Like you develop a partnership, and a lot of it is based upon like the core values. What are your values? How do you work? How do you work with people? How do you
Hmm.
treat people?
Yep.
And when you find good alignment there, something comes together, like you don't always know what the opportunity or where the spark is. And we kind of found that. And through it, we just kind of started building up that agency on the other side. And we ended up merging officially in 2020.
I
So
see. I see. So okay, and that merger is White Label IQ.
that merges White IQ. So we were operating as White Label IQ prior to that, but it was more of a strategic partnership. And then in 2020, we went over, we inked the deals, we incorporated kind of and set up a new shop, bought a new office, and then started to grow. And from 2020, we've gone from 17 to 80 people.
How about that? Okay, very good. So, all right. So Huebner and but he didn't have White Label before.
No, that this kind of was one of those situations in a business where you solve a problem and you're like, well, I could probably do that for other people too. And then
Hmm. Okay.
business births out of the existing business.
I see. I see.
So,
And were you, if you weren't a founder at Huebner, so what happened to the owners there? Are they?
um, yeah, he's still there. He's still there. You know, um, just a lot of transition and succession talking and just progressing there. But the it was the way it worked was in a lot of the development we needed to scale. Okay. We needed to have like dedicated PHP developers. Okay. Now we're working in, Node.js, and we needed to have a lot of specialized skill sets to be able to do the work we're doing.
Okay.
But in any kind of business, even like an agency, you run, particularly with my experience in agencies, you realize you get this book of business and then you hire somebody against it. And if that book of business is not consistent against that skill set, then you end up hunting that kind of business, and then your focus in the agency or business starts to dilute,
Yep.
and you're chasing so many shiny objects
Mm-hmm.
that the business really starts to struggle. So we solve that for marketing agencies, particularly.
I see.
Uh, and in that, we really work well with agencies who know what they do and know what they do well and want to be best in class in the area that they focus in. And then we come in with a lot of the development and like technical strategy and really provide best in class services and delivery in what we do well. And it allows us to partner with people and kind of really create these win-win situations.
Okay.
And the business side, um, in many ways, we operate as a staffing solution because,
Sounds like it.
right, because you're bringing talent to the table for a specific need for a specific period of time,
Mm-hmm.
and the company's not burdening those fixed costs.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Let's take a pause right there because I want to repeat back a few things I've heard. So, White Label IQ now, as it stands today, and by the way, for the listeners, it is whitelabeliq.com. As it stands now, so if I have an agency that maybe my specialty is, I don't know, graphic design, whatever.
Sure.
But I dabble in some other stuff, but I don't really have enough people to do a bunch of work. And then all of a sudden I get a phone call that says, hey, I really need some SEO help. Need somebody to help with SEO with our new website. And that agency's like, oh gosh, yeah. Sally usually works on that, right? But I don't know, Sally's out. She's not available right now. Boom. They call White Label IQ and you provide somebody. Is that accurate?
Correct. Yeah, we provide blended services. So we're coming in like either on a project or ad hoc basis.
Okay.
We work with them, define the scope, define what that's need, provided quotes, timelines, all the
Right.
background information so that they can communicate back out to their client,
Okay.
and we deliver.
All right. And are your contractors wearing the agency hat then and representing themselves as now that temporarily working for that agency? How does that work?
Yeah, it's about 50-50. So
Okay.
about half of the agencies just bring us forward and they're like, hey, we do this, we do it really well. Here's our partner, White Label IQ. They exclusively work with marketing agencies, which
All right.
that's important because you don't want to be in competition with your
Mm-hmm.
own clients.
Yeah.
And in that regard, um, we're able to come to the table. And for a lot of people, we'll put on that agency's hat and I'll show up and do discovery meeting. And I am the
Yep.
senior director of development.
Okay. And are you housing these contractors as employees, W-2, or how are you doing it on your end? Are you know what my question
So
is,
we
I'm sure.
do, yeah, no, we do all full-time employment and we're very transparent when we bring on contracts.
I
Because
see. So
if
I
we're
see. You're
building a
carrying.
product and we need like Python developers
Uh-huh.
or example, I don't have a number of Python developers on stack. So we'll go out, we'll tell the agency what we're doing, that we're hiring on contract, because I have to be able to support these builds after the fact.
Mm-hmm.
Leave you after the build hanging, wondering why things aren't going well all of a sudden.
Okay. So do you carry any of these folks regularly, or you just go get them when you need them, and then sometimes they'll work on the project, and then you lay off the W-2 person? How does that work? What's your business model?
We keep everybody on staff.
Okay.
A lot of our focus is we build teams and we really focus on a lot of website builds. So
Okay.
we have in our company, we're structured where we have account managers in the US side, and every hire on the US side has a counterpart on the India side.
Okay.
And that operates as the bridge between the time zone differences and just the geographic.
Very good. Very good. Mm-hmm.
And
What percentage of your labor force is overseas versus the US?
we have probably about 8 people here in the US and about 62 people or 72 people over in India.
Wow. And what percentage of your revenue is US?
Um, about 95%.
Okay, very good. All right. Sounds good. And at this point, when they merged, when the Huebner owner merged with your other guy, I can't remember his name. What was his name?
Nishant Rana.
I don't know. I'll let you pronounce it. But
Sure.
when they merged, then they said, okay, cool, we're merging, and Brian, we want you to run this thing. You're going to be president. Is that how it worked?
Progressively. At first, I was managing both of the businesses
Okay.
and also a SaaS build.
Okay.
Not recommended. So you just
Okay.
split yourself too much
All right.
and not
All
able
right.
to make great decisions. And when you're and before we separated white label from the company, it is really an issue of if you can't focus and make decisions
Mm-hmm.
for that business,
Yep.
every decision you make is it costs the other side.
Yeah, no doubt. Did they offer you equity in this new entity that was formed?
We're still in a lot of talks and how that ownership and equity is
Okay.
so.
Okay, I understand. Just grab it while you can, if you can, of course. Um, okay, very good. Appreciate you walking me through all that. Okay. Um, is there a targeted size of company, and are you targeting certain types of agencies, or are you agnostic? What's your target client look like?
So there are a number of, what shall I say, user journeys that seem to work well with us.
Okay.
One of them is what I call like the doer to director. There's a lot of times in a business where you have like an individual, maybe a unicorn. Okay. Everybody wants the unicorns. They know some front end, they know design, they know marketing, they get along well with clients, and you want to promote them. They know enough. They're Jack or Jills of all trade, and we can come in to either the marketing team, and we resource that individual, and it allows you to elevate that person from a doer who's in the weeds to beginning to direct a lot of these projects and initiatives because they understand the concepts. They understand the political nature around it. They know how to get things done. They know how to work with and delegate people progressively.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a great kind of in that type of scenario, it helps because you're staying nimble, you're staying strong, you've got your core people, and I often refer to as a core flex strategy in staffing,
Okay.
and you're resourcing through strategic partners the actual production of a lot of the work that
Mm-hmm.
happens.
Very good.
Yeah, another classic scenario that we work is fill gap. So when you get into a situation, and you're probably very familiar, where someone leaves, like a star employee, a unicorn, or someone
Mm-hmm.
there's a big project going on, that you don't really want to have to hire rapidly. You want to buy time. You want to be able to do it well.
Yep.
So we'll come in and we'll just fill that gap for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 months, whatever it takes. And then when the need subsides, we back out.
Okay.
So
Very good.
part of business.
Yeah, I like it. I like it. What marketing, or excuse me, what recruiting firms are you partnering with to make sure you keep your talent pool full? Because you can just, now that we've met and you know about Riderflex, you can just get rid of all of them and we'll have a relationship, especially
Right.
since we live close to each other.
Well, no, it is important because particularly here on the U.S. side, we are nimble on the U.S. side when you look
Yeah.
at the proportions of 8 people.
Yeah.
So every hiring decision is really critical.
Oh yeah,
With the
absolutely.
size, we
Yeah.
can't like you can't. There's nowhere to put your head down in a
Mm-hmm.
company in the size we are here in the U.S. So you
Right.
need people who are going to contribute. You need people who have that chemistry. You need to be able to
Mm-hmm.
and they're really critical decisions. And
Yep.
we do work with a lot of recruiting firms in India also to be able
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
make sure we have our
Yeah.
staff.
Yeah. Just to clarify, I wouldn't be interested in doing any recruiting over in India. I've yeah, I have no interest in doing that, but the US stuff for sure. Um, okay, thank you for sharing that with me. I want to add, by the way, your prices are very competitive. I looked at your website, and when I saw your price per hour, I thought, oh boy, these are very competitive prices. So I'm not surprised to find out that you're, 85% of your workforce, 90% of your workforce is in India. So now I know the business model. I know how I know how the math is working. Do you ever get pushback from clients around the language or accent barrier? Is that an issue at all ever? How do you work around that?
Sure. So the vast majority of people that we're hiring that are on the account side,
Hmm.
um, they speak English. I mean, English in India is one of the national languages. So there is, there's a lot of people here who speak really well. And honestly, I've got a lot of people over there who are correcting my grammar. Okay.
That's because you
Um,
grew up in Kansas, man. I grew up in Oklahoma. It's the same thing. Our grammar's terrible.
and to some degree too, like if it is a problem, we're probably not a great fit for you.
Yeah. Okay. Very good. All right. Cool. Thank you for sharing all that.
I'm not saying it's like it is a big problem because it is an issue, right? The time difference, the language,
Sure.
the questions
Sure.
are issues.
Yep.
And
Yep.
very much in part of our value proposition is solving that offshoring, way. And I refer to it as hybrid offshoring. So it allows everybody that we work with to have somebody available in their time zone who understands the culture and the needs and like why things are happening in the
Yes.
business and has experience within agencies, the
Yes.
same people that we're doing with, because you have you have to understand your audience. You can't just serve them at a distance.
That's right.
To go from good to great, you really have to have people who are close, who get
Hmm.
it, grew up in
Hmm.
the same way, who can have those conversations, build those relationships. Um, and I'm not saying you can't do it offshore, but the time differential and everything is
Very,
brutal.
very brutal. Yep, it's brutal, especially in India. I mean, the time zone change is what is it? Almost opposite, right? I don't know exactly what it is, but it's pretty much
Like
opposite.
12 and a half hours.
Yeah, I mean, it's yeah, it's very hard. Okay, my next question. Let's get into this as we and just for the listeners one more time. I want to make sure I get in whitelabeliq.com. I want to ask you, Brian, about the future a little bit, especially as it relates to tasks that agencies and marketing firms do. So this probably affects your clients more than it does you guys. With the rapid advancement of AI and the tools that I see coming down and everything that ChatGPT and everybody else is releasing, I've visited with some agency guys. I know a lot of agency people, right? And I've interviewed a shit ton of them, and have a lot of friends that are in that line of work. And I have started to think, like, oh boy, I don't know. There's some things here that look like might be getting eliminated pretty soon. Whether you're a graphic design, graphic artist, or whatever it is, I'm like, oof, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Brian? Are you nervous? Are you worried? What are you thinking? I know this is a big question, but talk to me in general.
Been thinking about it a lot, actually. There's a couple aspects to it. The first one is uh, people who get into the marketing industry, they're a little crazy. They've got some sort of chaos addiction to some degree. Okay, and I,
The
I
right brain,
uh,
the right brain, not left brain, for sure.
So I speak that because like you can't necessarily teach all this in school. You can teach the theories, but like marketing's on the front lines. Things are changing fast. You're
Yes.
you're constantly having to kind of reposition, readjust, recalibrate your agency
Hmm. Yep.
all the time.
Yep.
This is not like a sit back, make a widget. You're going to be doing great in 30 years and cultural icon type industry.
Mm-mm.
There is a tremendous amount of innovation happening constantly, and you have to be somebody who likes that kind of chaos. I was reading Dan Martell, Buying Back Your Time book, and he starts with entrepreneurs and talks about chaos addiction within this realm. And there is some truth to it, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But so if you're in this business and you were kind of made for it, you probably don't know any better. You couldn't get out. You'd be bored as crazy.
Okay.
So while things are changing and there's dramatic concern, if you're doing well, you were made for it. And the other aspect is that, classically, when you look at these types of disruptions in the economy, we know that at the end of it, more jobs are created than destroyed. It's just that there's a lot of retraining and there's a lot of jobs that just don't come back, as
Hmm.
you talked about. When we look at what's going on, don't get me wrong, because we do a lot of digital production work. Okay. So at the end of the day, though, it's just going to beat the mediocrity out of all of us. There's no showing up and checking a box and going home in this.
Yeah.
Uh, you're going to have to innovate. You're going to have to learn how to do things differently. People are going to move your cheese constantly. So it means that whatever field you're in, you have to focus a bit more on the strategy, understanding what needs to be done, what needs to be done next, why the client's there, identifying, the actual problem statement, being able to get to the core of things and just be able to provide that level of strategy and insight and confidence to your end clients.
Yeah.
Uh, and that has to be the focus. So my perceived understanding of what I believe is happening is that like agencies and internal marketing departments are shrinking.
Yep. They will.
And
Yeah.
in that shrinking, there's a lot more need for strategic partnerships to be able to handle development, SEO, and all these other things. Because like I talked about back in the day when I was coming on and we're Googling how to do a website, like that doesn't fly anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, you can do it to a certain degree, but
Yeah.
to do it well, you have to excel and focus and demonstrate authority within that field. Because at the end of the day, people aren't buying the SEO. They're showing up at your doorstep because of the trust that they have. They're showing up because they're like, okay, I'm going to pay them money to do this so that I can sleep well at night and know that it's going to be done well.
True. Yeah. Yeah. Good. Yeah. It's so funny you mentioned the say yes even though you don't know, and then Google it and figure it out. I remember when we first started Riderflex as a recruiting firm. This is 8 years ago, whatever it was. I was an operations guy, by the way. I was a COO and a CEO for some CPG companies, so I was not a lifelong recruiter before I started Riderflex. And I remember the first time we were on a call and somebody's like, "Yeah, I need a front end developer." And I shit you not, Brian. It wasn't a video call. It was on the phone. And I'm Googling front end developer. What the hell is that? Let me see. you know, and he's like, "Have you ever recruited front end developers?" "Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, I know what that is. That's blah, 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 blah." It's so funny. um, okay. Well, on that topic that you just answered there, um, it's obvious that you are paying attention. It's obvious you don't have your head in the sand. You're not pretending like things aren't happening. Your eyes wide open. It sounds like to me, which I highly advise for any listeners right now. And I don't care what industry you're in, but I strongly advise eyes open, pay attention to what's going on, stay up with what's being released, figure out how to pivot, navigate, change, use it, etc.
Yeah, I
Because if
mean,
you're,
this is more like a tsunami. You're
yeah,
not going to get from it. It's just a matter of can you get to high ground fast enough?
great. Hey, I love that. I love that. I'm going to use that. I'm going to steal that line. What I've been telling people too is, and because a lot of people say that, right? They're like, "Oh, well, when we went from the horse and buggy to the car, everything was fine. And when we went from this to this, was when we went from kerosene to oil, and it was fine." And my response is, "Yeah, that that was one particular industry or one particular thing. This, in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, but this is a seismic catastrophic. I don't know if catastrophic is the right word. This is a global gigantic shift that's affecting more industries at one time than anything else that's ever happened, in my opinion. And so yeah, get make sure you're getting to high ground.
Um, the reason being too, and one of the things that's so different about this is that um, the amount of disruption is happening so
So
fast.
fast. That's
You're,
exactly right.
it's not even like looking out, just like
That's right.
paying attention. You see what's going on over there? Like
Right.
daily, massive shifts daily.
Daily. That is the biggest difference. It's affecting mass volumes of industries and jobs super fast. I mean, I don't know what the timeline was from the very first automobile to 90% of automobiles being on the road and 10% were horse and buggy, but we're talking, I'm sure it was 10, 20, 30 years, whatever it was, right? This is weekly, man.
I mean, I was up here in northern Colorado. I went to an AMA mixer
Yeah,
at it's a marketing agency up in Fort Collins,
yeah,
and then Bonfire Marketing started kind of spinning up these mixers with the creative talent in northern
okay,
Colorado.
okay,
And I'm sitting there talking to a bunch of designers and copywriters in this little group, and they're sitting there going like, you know, we watched enough movies, we kind of knew something like this was going to happen, but like I never imagined it would be the creators that would get hit by this first.
Did you listen to did you happen to listen to the Mark Andreessen interview with Joe Rogan a few months back, a couple months back? He's one of the founders of LinkedIn, and he said very similarly to what you kind of just said. He was talking to Rogan. He said, it's interesting. 5, 6, 7, 8 years ago, we still had this mentality that the robots were going to take the blue collar jobs first, and the white collar jobs were safe.
Yeah.
Fast forward, now the white collar jobs are in danger. The blue collar guys are like, yeah, we're good to go for now.
No, it did not expect it. And there's plenty of people still fighting the fight,
Yep, I hear
Oh,
you.
don't need it, you know. And
Brian.
it's fine. It's just you have to look at it differently. You really have to
you have to just. I encourage people to pay attention. Back to what we were saying earlier. For everybody that's listening to this podcast, we're recording this on December 5th, 2023. I highly encourage people to keep your eyes open and your head out of the sand. As a recruiter, I visit with clients and candidates every single day, right? And I still daily will talk to somebody like, oh yeah, ChatGPT, yeah, I've heard about it. I haven't really played with it or anything. And I'm just like, okay, man, like you better pay attention.
I mean, this was pretty quick after ChatGPT came out. Goldman Sachs came out with a bit of report. It talked about disruption against different countries and industries. And I know it's early on, right? Whose crystal ball is clear, but
Yeah.
they were predicting by the later half of this decade that potentially 25% of jobs could be replaced.
And I've read, and I keep reading. And by the way, those articles, the number keeps going up.
Yep.
The number keeps going up. Here's what's really cool. I like to go, since we live in Colorado, I like to go camping and spend time in the mountains. So I keep telling my wife, I'm like, hey, if it happens fast enough and robots can do everything and they want to send out universal pay, I'm cool with that. I'll just go camping all the time. That's cool with me.
That's pretty swell, but I've been around long enough. I remember when the internet started to be a thing. Everybody was like, "Hey, we're only going to have to work 3-hour days. This is going to be awesome." Guess what? You had to produce like 2, 3 times the amount in the same amount of time, and that's exactly what's happening here. It's not doing anybody favors. We now have to produce 3, 4, 5 times the amount of
Good
output
point.
within the same amount of time for less resources.
Good point. By the way, speaking of internet, I'm holding up my smartphone, but you can't see it because I have my thing on. You're old enough probably to remember before we had smartphones. I mean, these fucking things right here make you work all the time. Like you're always working. Like I mean, you're always working. It wasn't like that, man. When I was in my 20s and even early 30s, when you were off work, you were off work.
It's different for an entrepreneur in the sense that like there's no balance. It's a blend.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It's
Um,
true. It's true.
but
Well, we're living in an interesting. It's a
shift. So when we look at, so I've been around a few decades, and we do a lot of hiring. And when like my grandpa, okay, or my great grandpa, they worked. It was for survival, literally to put food on the table that
That's
day.
correct. Yep.
My dad, he grew up, it wasn't about survival, but it was about just opportunity. It was about, being able to travel, being able to get around, being able to do different things. When I grew up, it was all about access to information.
Yeah, true.
So these are all reasons why you work. Like, what is the purpose? And we're getting into areas now where
what's your purpose? What's your purpose going to be?
It's very purpose driven. Like, do I want to work here? Do I see myself here? Do I feel comfortable here? The type of work environment is much more critical because the ability to switch jobs,
man,
is easy. I mean, it's way easier because after COVID, the geographical restraints are just ripped off.
That's right.
I get it. People are trying to bring people back in the office. Guess what? There's still millions of remote jobs available.
Yeah. That's never coming back, by the way. I guess every time I see those articles, those articles are telling people to come back to the office. Here's who those articles are from: people that own commercial real estate buildings, oil companies that want cars driving on the road to spend money with gas. anytime I see those articles, you can always trace it back to the money. It's somebody affected negatively by the fact that people aren't going to the office financially, and that's why they want that.
One thing,
You,
there's some truth. There are a couple slivers to truth though too, because I have noticed onboarding people post-pandemic
yeah.
is harder. Onboarding new employees
Okay.
is a lot more difficult than it was when you had everybody
Mm,
in office.
yeah. Well, you're onboarding a lot of people in India. They're not in the office, are they?
All of them are.
Oh, you got a building over there. You guys got an office over there.
We have a large office.
Uh,
Multiple
have you
teams.
gone over? Have you flown over?
Oh yeah, well, many times, many times.
Have you? Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
That flight is not fun, is it? No, painful,
Like 35 hours.
dude.
Yeah.
I don't know how you do that. Man, my back would be. I don't know if I could do that or not.
Just, um, it the secret to jet lag is not to get the cheap seat.
Amen, brother. You could not pay. I don't know. I would never fly coach overseas. No, never. I would
It
rather.
actually,
I'd rather die first.
it actually happened once I showed up and like my seat was literally broken. And here's the thing, I'm like 6'4", okay,
Oh,
265.
oh shit, you're a big dude.
So I like for me, it's like I sat in the back economy and I literally could not put my legs forward. I had to sit sideways for the entire 17-hour flight.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was hard.
That yeah, okay. I'm sorry that happened to you. That's something you will never forget.
To the point with working in office too. So um, it is true here in the US, we're vastly remote. As one note, I am starting to bring people back into office more, but we are dedicated to the hybrid model.
I see.
And
Okay.
part of it is because I like working at home.
Oh yeah, who doesn't? I mean, most people do. I mean, you know what I
But
like. You know what the number one thing is I like from working from home. This is kind of this is going to sound funny, right? And probably too much information to share for the audience, but I'll just tell you because I don't think people talk about this, but I think it's real.
I think I know where you're going.
My own restroom, Brian.
That's
Anytime
it.
I
That's
want
exactly what I was thinking.
my own toilet. Anytime I want. I don't know what the value is around that, but it is like now when me and my business partner, like if we have to go somewhere for the day and we have to go to like a conference or something, I'm like, man, this sucks. Like I like the restroom. Anyway,
There you go. Any
uh,
any conversation that goes on long enough will eventually circle back to poop. Just saying.
it will, no doubt about it. Brian, hey man, listen, thank you for being on the show and chatting with us about whitelabeliq.com. I can see where your services is very valuable because you don't have to carry these employees. You can just call you guys anytime, especially if you got projects where you're flexing up or down. And you guys can provide the support. And I think marketing agencies are going to be faced with a lot of changes in the next 24 months, and being able to call on you versus having to hire and fire and lay off people as things fluctuate is going to be handy. So I can see where you'll probably, while I personally think some marketing agencies are going to suffer with the changes around AI, for you in particular, you might actually benefit because as things happen with them, you're going to be able to flex people in and out. So maybe it's a good thing for you. I don't know.
So, betting on it.
Thanks for being on the Riderflex show, Brian. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you, Steve.